All right, so we're going to begin. Hi, everybody. So my name is Jameson Payne. I am the comms coordinator for Section C4. So my job entails handling all of the major communications for the lodge. I don't personally handle social media, but I do write all of the newsletters that go out. I am writing the newspaper for Conclave, and of course, I host this training. So I am not on site right now. I am at home. So if there's any uh, cacophony in my background, I apologize for that. So with that being said, I'm going to open this training with a quote misattributed to Mark Twain. So Blaise Pascal said that if I had more time to write, I would have written it shorter. So people appreciate brevity and people appreciate conciseness in communication, and a concise message is the most effective message. So with that being said, I don't think my training is going to take the full 45 minutes that we have, and I'm not going to try to shoehorn it into a full 45 minutes. I anticipate it'll take about 30 minutes. So hopefully you can use those extra 15 minutes before the midway to, do something else, enjoy some other fun aspect of the conclave. So with that, let's dive right in. So the structure of this training and my presentation should be up on the Google Meet. I believe you can pin it to your just pin it to the front so that you can see it as I go on. So the structure of this training is going to be open dialogue. So I'm more of just a mediator in this training. So I'm the dude with the PowerPoint. I'm the dude giving the presentation, but that's not to say that you might not be able to contribute something useful to this discussion. I'm sure there are people currently sitting in this training that have tons of communication experience. So if you have something valuable to contribute, feel free to chime in. I'm not going to hog the spotlight here, and I will ask questions throughout this training, just to get some group input, because more minds have more knowledge, and they can think more effectively. So yeah, and this training is going to be moving from small group communications to large group communications. I'm going to start on small group communications because I believe it is perhaps the most important aspect of communications. Most of what you do in your day-to-day life is going to be small group communications. Most of what you do in your day-to-day leadership is going to be small group communications. Large group communications is usually handled by one delegated person for the section that happens to be me. But for most office positions, for most staff, you're dealing with small groups. So I'm going to start on that and then move into larger groups. So a brief itinerary of this session is going to be, we're going to start with why communication skills are important to begin with. Why do you even need to put so much thought and effort into communication? Why can't you kind of just wing it, so to say? And it's a very important question, so we're going to answer it first before we proceed with anything else. And then we're going to go with the most basic form of communication, which is a simple message. We're going to dissect a message, and we're going to figure out the different aspects of a message and how we can optimize these different aspects to make our communication skills more effective. And then we're going to move into small group comms, and then we're going to go to social media and how you can more effectively utilize social media. And then we're going to go to the namesake of this training, which is memes. All right, so let's begin. So why are communication skills even important to begin with? It might seem like kind of a trivial question, but it's a very important question and it's one that deserves to be answered. So can anyone here give me a suggestion for why they think communication skills are important, and why you can't just you can't just wing communications. You have to put some thought into it. Anyone have any ideas? Put it in the chat. You can say it to convey a complete thought. I mean, yeah, that is important. If it what I'm thinking of and how that kind of loops in is that's very true. If you're not conveying a complete thought, then your communication isn't useful. And we're going to find out the 6 elements of a good message, the 5 W's and the 1 H. And if you're missing something, or if you're not conveying a complete thought, then messages aren't going to be reaching their full effectiveness. Any other ideas?
How do you
No? All right. Well, let's start with a few. So this kind of loops in to what, let's see, to what Francis said, which is that conveying complete thoughts are important. Your message is really only as effective as your communication skills. So you know, really, your the actual message you're trying to convey could be as bare bones as possible. It could be as bare bones as possible. It doesn't matter how good the message is if you're not effectively conveying it. You know, you could get a trained orator, a trained rhetorician to speak on some boring subject for a long time and encapsulate an audience because their communication skills are so great. But you could also speak on something that's really cool or fun, like, for example, conclave or a lodge event, or anything that's super fun and interesting. But it doesn't matter, because you're not going to engage your audience if you don't have effective communication skills. So really, your message is only as good as your communication skills. So with that in mind, let's talk about hearing versus listening. So there are 2 different types of, you know, you can take in someone speaking in 2 different ways. You can hear them, or you can listen to them. And there's a big difference, even though, you know, you might think they're synonymous. They're not. Hearing is a very passive thing. You know, you can take in information passively, but you're going to miss very large swaths of it. You know, like, hearing might be when you're sitting in lecture hall and your professor's rambling on. That's hearing. Maybe you pick up on some little bits of what they're saying, but you're not all there. Whereas listening is a very active thing. You're actively tuning into what someone has to say. And this isn't just true for speaking or auditory input. It's true for any form of communication. You know, if you're posting something on social media, let's say, and you don't have them, you can take in social media posts through a hearing manner or a listening manner. So if you're just passing, that's more like hearing. Whereas if you're actually taking the time to read what the person has to say, that's more like listening. So if you don't have effective communication skills, you're going to get a lot of people just hearing what you have to say, as compared to listening to what you have to say. So you need to sharpen your communication skills in order to get more listeners, and to drive home your message to those listeners. So that's the first reason why communication skills are important. And I already brought up social media, but social media is its own dominion. It's very important to have effective communication skills in terms of social media, because whereas if you're giving a speech, like if you're me in a training right now, people kind of already have their people already have their attention turned towards you because you're kind of the only you're the only object in the room. And I'm sure everyone here has experienced where you're sitting and listening to the only person in the room speaking, and you're not even listening, you're just hearing. So humans, their trains of thought can wander. So even if you're the only thing trying to vie for someone's attention, they can still tune out. Whereas in social media, your message is competing with everyone else's message. You know, the average person in America is on social media for 33 minutes. And if you're a teen, it's more like an average of 3 hours per day. Imagine how much information you're taking in within 3 hours, or even just half an hour. You're reading dozens of messages and you're taking in so much data. If your message doesn't stick out, it's just going to blur in. It's just going to be another message to passively read instead of actually take in and take note of. So with social media, it's imperative that you have great communication skills. Otherwise, your message is just not going to reach a captive audience. And yeah, so that's the point. And another interesting factor we have is COVID-19. COVID-19 is shaping the landscape of communication in a very extraordinary way. And so how do we think COVID-19 is affecting communication, and why in particular do you need excellent communication skills during COVID-19? What makes COVID-19 so different in that it requires better communication skills to do well during COVID? You can just sound it out or put it in the chat. Really, either one's fine. All ideas are accepted. So let's hear it.
It's life-threatening.
It is life-threatening. That's true. Although that isn't exactly what I was going for. That is true, but that wasn't exactly what I had in mind, as in how it affects actual like communications. Let's see. We don't have in-person meetings, so we have to learn other ways to communicate. Boom, that's on point. That is exactly what I was thinking of. Awesome job, Francis. So,
if I may.
Yeah, sure.
Another big thing that you need communication is in schools. Like I know in Harrison County, at the moment, we're only going in school once a week, and the rest of class, it's online. So teachers have to have good communication to get kids into online class.
And that's Cameron speaking, right?
Yeah.
That I actually didn't put a whole lot of thought into that point because all of my academic courses are online right now. But that's actually a great point. In academia, you know, if you're a school student and you're only going into class once a week, or I think my brothers are going in twice a week. But either way, if you're only attending in-person class a few times a week, your professor or your teacher better be a great communicator, because otherwise, you know, it's hard enough to pay attention in school as it is. That's undisputable. But if it's only for 2 times a week, you need to be a great communicator so that your students are getting the point conveyed. So yeah, that's a great point. But more in general, we don't have in-person communication, and that's important for 2 reasons. One is that in-person communication is better than out-of-person communication. That's, you know, people have different preferences, of course, but that's an empirical fact. It is a proven fact that in-person communication is more effective than say a Google Meets or Zoom or whatever it might be. And that's because humans pick up on nonverbal cues, and it's an essential part of communication. You know, not being able to see a person's body language, it actually does have it's a huge screen on how effective we can convey a message. So just in general, moving to online communications as our primary mode of communicating is it's a huge handicap, really. It limits our ability to fully communicate. And also, you know, maybe you're not used to communicating online all the time. Maybe you're used to doing most of your communications in person. And if that's the case, you have to adapt to these new modes of communication so that life can continue as normally as reasonably possible. So COVID's having a huge effect on communications, and that's another point of why you need great communications. So now that we've established why communicating is important and why skills in communicating are important, I want to talk about the basic model of communication. So here's my model. Aristotle had a model that was a bit more complicated. It was sender, message, occasion, receiver, effect. I think that's too complicated. I think mine is simple enough. Sender, message, receiver, and the message is two things. It's a hook and it's a body. And you might be thinking to yourself, well, this is trivial information. You know, I already knew that. Like, anyone can figure out that a message is a sender, a receiver, and a message. You know, that's painfully obvious. But it's important to note, because once you start looking at the individual aspects of a message, you start finding out different ways to optimize your message. You know, once you zoom in on the different aspects of a message, the way you effectively communicate becomes a lot different. You know, you start thinking to yourself, well, who is my receiver? Oh, actually, there's a slide for this, so I'll move to that. So, like, who is your receiver? Who are you tailoring your message to? And, you know, so you can think very generally, or you can think very narrowly. You know, you might think, well, I'm in the OA, so my receiver is OA members. And yes, that's true. But you can also think about it a little bit more in detail. You can think, well, I have two main audiences for the OA. My receivers are going to be the adult leadership and the parents of lodge members, and I also have the youth. So you have two separate receivers, and thinking about what their interests are and what encapsulates them, that's going to be huge in effectively communicating. You know, communication isn't a one size fits all thing. You know, some forms of communication aren't going to be as effective on adults as they are on teenage lodge members, and vice versa. So with that, I want you to think, can you remember a speech or a message that has stuck with you for a long time, or just something that a message that you can very vividly remember? And why was it so effective at sticking with you? Like, what about it stuck out, and why do you still remember it? You know, we hear dozens of speeches every single year. And so if you can remember a speech for several years, it was probably a good speech. So do any of you guys have any speeches that you distinctly remember? And what was so good about that speech? What hooked you onto that speech so that you remember it still? All right. Well, I guess I'll go first. So last year I attended with my church a youth retreat, and I've been to this retreat like 4 or 5 times now. And, you know, I guarantee you I don't remember every single message I've heard from those retreats. But last year in particular, I remember I remember not one speech, but I remember 2 speeches. And I remember them quite vividly because, you know, the first one was a message from a stand-up comedian. And the message stuck with me because he integrated humor into his message. And humor is a very powerful hook. Humor is great at getting certain receivers to stick with your message. And so, he was a stand-up comedian. He was a pretty good one. And so I remember what he had to say. I don't just remember that he was funny. I remember exactly what he was preaching that night, and I remember what his message was. And that's because he stuck in my mind, because he was so good at hooking me into his message. And the second speaker that night was just a normal pastor, and I remember his message very well as well, because he was quite relatable. He was a younger guy. He talked about his life, and he talked about his interaction with youth, and he was relatable. So being relatable can hook in your audience as well. And obviously they were great messages because I still remember them. So just putting some active thought into what's going to encapsulate your audience is super important, because if you put a little bit of thought into communication, it goes such a long way. It really does. And so this point kind of loops into what else I had to say, which is the hook. The hook is actually what's reeling them in. A message is two different things. It's your hook and it's your message, or your body per se. Your hook is what's changing them from a hearer to a listener. It's changing them to an active engagement in your discussion or your message. And then your body is what's actually being said. So we're going to move on to the message. Once you put some thought into your hook, all you really have to do is make a good message. So I'm going to give you two different platitudes, I guess, to make a great message. And the first one is KISS. Keep it simple, stupid. I'm sure you've heard it. It really is true. Just keep it as simple as possible. You don't have to make some crazy, long, elaborate, detailed message. You just have to sell them on the main point and then fill in the information later. That's kind of the art of conveying a good message. Maybe you're working on your large social media. Hook them in. Post a funny meme, post a good graphic, something that's going to catch their attention, and then give them the message. Boom, on September 25th, Conclave, be there. And then, follow it up with some more detailed information after they already know, hey, Conclave's that weekend, I should keep that in the back of my head. Then you fill in the rest of the information, and there you go. You've gotten new people to attend your event. And the second thing I'm going to tell you is a common sales tactic, which is the 5 W's and the 1 H. I'm sure you all heard it from third grade English or somewhere like that. Who, what, where, when, why, and how. So that's really all a message has to be. Give them the who, the what, the when, the where, the why, and the how. And that's really as simple as it is. And like I said, I know I'm repeating myself a bit, but don't torture your message. Don't make it longer than it needs to be. And you've already got a great message. So just keep those in mind. Keep in mind your audience. Keep in mind, how can I engage them in their in the message, and how can I make a effective message? And really, that's the first step to great communication. Okay, so now we're going to move on to small group comms. And actually, it's looking like I was a little bit longer than I anticipated. That's okay though. That's fine. We might get out at 11:45. That's okay. So small group comms. So having an effective way of communicating with your group saves you a massive headache. I'm sure we've all been in a situation where we're on a deadline, and your communication starts breaking down. People don't respond to their calls. People don't respond to their texts, their emails, whatever. That's a pain in the butt, and you want to ignore it, or not ignore it. You want to prevent it as well as you possibly can. because otherwise, maybe you like working on a deadline, but I sure don't. So I'm going to show you how to prevent working on deadlines and how to prevent your small group communication from breaking down when you start working under time pressure. So my solution for you is technology. Really, it's multi-channel technology, and I'm going to give you an example of what I mean. So these are three apps that I have all used, and all of these are great for managing small group communications. They put everyone in one place. They allow you to just open the app and then boom, you're there. You can communicate with everyone at once. You can make channels so that only people who need to be there are there. It's a little bit nicer than having to deal with a giant text group. Those can be a pain in the butt if you have a lot of people in them. So I've ranked these from what I perceive as the best to what I perceive as the worst. So I think Discord is by far the best to use for small group comms. I don't know why it's not employed more. I guess some people think that it's hard to set up. I disagree. I think it's just as easy as GroupMe or some other small group communication app. Once you set up the server, boom, super easy. Just shoot someone an invite link and they're there. I've used it for really small group communication, and I've used it for massive group communication. It's a very versatile platform. So if you haven't heard of Discord, definitely check it out. Section C4 has its own Discord server for Conclave. So maybe check that out as well to kind of get a sneak peek about what Discord is all about. The second one is Slack. I haven't used Slack a whole lot, but it's quite similar to Discord. I just prefer Discord a little bit more, but Slack is also totally fine. It's a great method for small group comms as well. And either of those two are fine. And GroupMe, I'm not a huge fan of GroupMe. I know a lot of people like GroupMe, but I think it's really just a text group with a poll option. So maybe some people find the appeal in that. It's quite simple, but I usually like a little bit more when I'm working in small groups. So, that's just subjective. And so, check them all out, choose what you like. If you guys have any other small group apps that you've used, feel free to talk about them in the chat and I will read them out, and we can go into a discussion on that. But those are the big three, and so all of them are preferable to frantic phone calls and text groups and whatnot. So just learn what you like and then use it. And so I have a meme there. I'm a simple person. I like simple things. I'm not big brain. I don't like to do things that unnecessarily complicate my life. So, I keep it small brain. I use Discord or Slack. Maybe you are big brain and you like using phone calls the day before a deadline, but that's not for me. And I'm sure that's not for a lot of people. So, just keep these things in mind. Try to optimize your small group usage. All right, so now we're going to move on to social media. Here's a little pyramid of what you need to know about social media. So it's kind of a catch-22 in using social media. On one hand, certain platforms are great for age appeal. So the arrow up on age appeal shows that Snapchat is easily, or maybe not easily, it's comparable to Instagram in age appeal, but both of them have a bigger audience in youth membership than Facebook. I've heard Facebook be called like the old man social media. I don't know why that is. I use Facebook more than both of those platforms. I don't even have a Snapchat, frankly. But whatever works for you. I'm just saying it how it is. You're going to find more youth members actively using Instagram and Snapchat. But on the other hand, as you go down the list, you find more information capacity, which means that Snapchat isn't great for sending out detailed information. Instagram's a little bit better, but Facebook is by far the best for large information. And like I said, you don't have to do anything flamboyant. Keep your message simple. But, you know, it's kind of hard to get all of the basics of your message down in one snap or in an Instagram post. Facebook's definitely the best for that. My recommendation is I wouldn't use Snapchat as a main social media account just because it's kind of too low information capacity. Like you can kind of say like, hey guys, there's an event on this date, be there. Like that's kind of the most you can convey through Snapchat. I would definitely use Instagram and Facebook more as your workhorses. They just, you can kind of send out your basic message in both of those completely fine. Instagram is pretty good for multimedia because it's kind of designed for multimedia. So if you have a nice graphic that you want to hook people in on, maybe slap that on Instagram, and then for Facebook you catch all of the adult leadership with some more detailed information because adults have a little bit better attention span, a little bit more likely to notice some information from their section on Facebook. So just integrate the two. Even just one is fine, but if you have the resources, two is great. That's kind of how I would set it up. I know some lodges go above and beyond. I think Erie Lenan is really on top of their social media. I should probably know this because I'm in Erie, but I know for a fact that they have an active Twitter and an active Facebook. I'm not sure about I think they have an active Instagram. You don't need to do all of that, but if you do, more power to you. So that's kind of just the basic dynamics of social media and what you should be doing with that. And on top of just normal social media, you can also enhance your social media by using different apps, websites, and integrations. So I'm going to show you some. So these are the integrating platforms. I haven't used Buffer or Hootsuite, but I've heard good things about them. I have used Zapier. I don't think it's very popular, but from what I've done with it, it's pretty great. Basically, what all these tools do is they allow you to schedule social media posts, which is it's super convenient. And you can also integrate your different media accounts. So you can do for Zapier, for example, one thing you can do is you can set up an integration where anything you post on your Facebook is going to get posted onto your Instagram as well. And on one hand, that kind of defeats the point of using the two social medias to their strengths because you're kind of just posting one message on both. But on the other hand, it's also great for cross appeal. So if one person solely uses Instagram or one person solely uses Facebook, just post it on your Facebook, and then all of the people who solely use Instagram are going to see that message as well. If you do have enough time and resources, like if you have a dedicated social media guy, maybe you don't need to integrate it. Maybe they can make their own stuff for each platform. But if you're just trying to keep it simple and basic, that's a super easy way to manage all social media accounts from one platform. So definitely look into those. And another one is graphics. Multimedia is kind of like it's the meat and potatoes of social media. You can post a pretty message, but it doesn't matter because most likely your message isn't going to have a hook associated with it. And so it doesn't matter how good that message is. If they're not seeing it, it doesn't matter. So a great way to hook people in is with a good graphic. And so for graphics design, Photoshop is great. It's it's the standard tool for all graphics design. If you don't have Photoshop or don't want to fork over the money for a Photoshop license, Canva is my best recommendation. I have used Canva before. It is absolutely fantastic. It's a free program, but it looks very professional. Like your end results look stellar. I don't know if a paid Canva subscription is worth the money, but a free Canva account, by definition, it's worth it, but it's especially worth it. Canva is a very great tool. So definitely look into both of those. Canva is also super easy for people who aren't experienced in graphic design. Canva is very like modular, I guess. You kind of can, like, anyone can make a good design on Canva, basically is what I'm saying. Like, you don't need to be an expert to use Canva. So that's a great program. If you take anything away from this on social media, definitely look into Canva, because that's a godsend. Yeah, so that's how you enhance your social media a little bit more. And oh, okay. So this is a side note. It's not exactly social media, but it is a big thing in large group communications, and that's your newsletters. So newsletters are the workhorse of large group communications. They wrap everything together per se. Like, if you see one post on social media, that's cool and all, but you might be missing other things if you just don't happen to see them. And the thing about newsletters is it puts all of the information you've been putting up on social media into a neat little package. So like newsletters are the fundamental communication method of a large group. So the section has a newsletter, obviously. I think a lot of lodges have newsletters, or they should. Send them out. Maybe we do ours quarterly. I think some lodges do them monthly. Either one is fine, really. But definitely, if you're a unit leader and you don't have a newsletter, and you're maybe, I don't know if a chapter would necessitate a newsletter, but definitely look into it, because it's like it's not that hard to do, and it's wrapping together everything. But the big thing about newsletters is engagement. It's harder to hook in people to a newsletter, because most newsletters don't come in as this giant image or some flashy whatever. They're just another message in your email inbox. So the real trick with newsletters is wrapping people into them by using social media. Complement newsletters with social media presence, so that people know that you're actively communicating. You keep yourself in the back of their head, so that if they see an email from you saying Section C4 newsletter, they say, hey, maybe I should take a look at that. So use newsletters, but make sure that you're hooking people in, because I would suspect that newsletters might have the lowest engagement rate of any large group communication. And that's just because people's inboxes are flooded, and you have to kind of select what you're looking at, and sometimes newsletters just go by the wayside. So complement that with social media. And the tools for this job are going to be Constant Contact. I haven't personally worked with, but again, I've been told it's good, although Constant Contact is paid. I don't know what the pricing is like for MailChimp, but it's what the section uses, and I've had absolutely no problem with it. So I'm gonna say go with MailChimp probably. It's really easy. Once you get your template set up, you just pop all the information in, and boom, you're done. So MailChimp or Constant Contact if you want to get a paid subscription. And that's about it with newsletters. And so this is kind of what you've all been waiting for, I'm sure, the namesake of the training, and that's memes. So what are memes even good for? And the answer to that question is, before I talk about that, the reason why memes are useful is because they make a great hook. And when people see something funny, when they see a good meme, they stop and they think, they have a laugh, and then maybe they look at your message, and you've just hooked a person in with a good meme. And teenage communication is kind of defined by memes nowadays. It's a huge medium for communication. And so if you effectively utilize memes, you are netting in a huge potential audience that would have otherwise ignored your posts. So yeah, memes are a great hook. They're also a great job to delegate to a youth member. If you have a youth member who wants to get active in your lodge, say, hey, Are you good with memes? Do you want to make some memes for the lodge? And, you know, maybe send maybe your social media guy can do it, or maybe you give it to a new member who wants to help contribute to your lodge. You know, it's a great fun thing to do. It's rewarding, and it's worth your time if you do it well. So onto memes as a hook. So as I said, they're a great hook. But the thing about them is that they're a very hit or miss kind of deal. The thing about memes is that if it's a good meme, it's a great hook. If it's a good meme, it's as simple as that. If you get someone to look at it and have a good laugh, then your job is succeeded. But if your meme isn't that good, then you might put a little bit of like, people might put a little association of cringe in with your media, and this is part of the reason why I say delegate it to a youth member. No offense to adults whatsoever, but the fact of the matter is that youth members are more in tune with what a good meme is and how to read like the trends on memes. So you know, I'm not disencouraging you to make memes. Definitely do, but just, you know, pass it by someone. Maybe be a little bit cognizant that if your meme doesn't work out, it's just not worth posting. So and memes are also like fashion. Know what's in style. You know, the things that you used from 2010, they're not gonna be the things you want to use now. Memes are they're really a fashion. They really are. They're what's in style is what you want to use. You know, people's tastes change. You know, multiple times a year even. So just be cognizant of that. You know, think about what memes you've been seeing a lot recently, and use that to your advantage. So use timely memes and not ones from 2010 is kind of the main point. And so there's a meme. So yeah, don't be big brain here. Keep it small brain. Just use something in style. And with that, the tools for this job are going to be Capwing and Paint.net. I've seen people say Mematic, but frankly, I think the format of Mematic is a little bit outdated. And so, you know, Paint.net is totally fine. I made all the memes in this presentation with Paint.net. It's a totally fine tool. Capwing's also okay for caption memes. Either one works for a good meme. And so last slide, or the last thing I want to cover really quickly, is taking your first steps as a lodge with good communication. So the first thing I can tell you is network. You know, use your previously existing network to hook people onto your social media. You know, just word of mouth. Hey, if you have an announcement to make, boom, maybe rep your social media in there. Just say, hey, we have a Facebook, or hey, we have an Instagram. Here's our handle. Go visit it. And then boom, there you go. You've utilized everyone who's in that audience, who's listening, of course. You've put that in the back of their head. And so just utilize your in-person events to rep your social media. Know your weaknesses. Google Analytics is good for this. Facebook also has its own analytics, but the point of this is know what your post engagement is like. Know how many people are following your accounts. You know, if you have a low follow rate, maybe you want to focus on networking. Maybe if you have a lot of followers but a really low engagement, maybe you want to reassess what kind of message you're sending out and how you can hook more people onto your message. Maybe that's the point where you start using memes or something like that. And the last tip I can give you is, because we're running a little bit late, so I'll go over this really quick, is use section resources. Talk to your partner lodge about their social media. Frankly, I'm not really involved with the Lodge Assistance Program, but I do know that every lodge has been assigned a partner lodge. Use your partner lodge. You know, talk to them. Say, hey, what are you guys doing with your social media? How do you have such a big social media presence? You know, just talk, and they're gonna give you some tips. They're gonna confide in you some useful information. And yeah. Am I a joke to you? So yeah, use your partner lodge, and feel free to reach out to me as well. The section is here to support the lodges. we're kind of a bit bottom up. You know, the lodges are the fundamental unit of the OA. So I'm here to help lodges. If you want some help getting a social media page up, or even getting a website up, I do that kind of stuff as well. Feel free to reach out to me. I am totally willing to help lodges with that kind of stuff. I don't know how much longer I'll be comms coordinator since this is the end of the term. I don't know if I'll be renewed or not, but you know, in either case, I'm still totally willing to help. So with that said, thank you all for coming to this training. If you want to reach out to me, my email and phone number are up on the slide. Send me an email, send me a text. Either one works. But yeah, so I hope you guys all got something useful out of this training. And thank you so much for attending. All right.
Thank you very much. It was very enlightening.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate hearing that.
Hope you have a good day there.
Thank you. You too.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.